pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll with planet. Flight downside, speed off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, y'all. You know the drill. What I want to see in chat is a hearty win hop, please. We are live. We've got multiple views from Boca Chica, Texas, where Starship is standing by. It continues to stand by. All it's been doing is standing by, it seems like. But that's what I like to see. Look at chat over there with the win hops. Folks, we know that everybody is wondering what is going on with Starship SN9 and all the other stuff out at Boca Chica. Yesterday, visibility was really tough with what was going on out there, but today it looks like the winds have changed and given us a little bit of ability. Everything looks fantastic. So the NASA spaceflight team is going to be here doing some Q&A from different various spots around Boca Chica. Of course, we got a bunch of people back and participating remotely in the studios. And then Mary, of course, the first intro camera shot we've got here is from Mary, Boca Chica gal. She's right there outside the test site. You can see SN9 and 7.2, which is decidedly still in one piece after the testing that it went through yesterday. But I am John Galloway with NASA Spaceflight. Let me know that you can hear everything for me. Give me a 5x5. And then the video also looks fantastic as well. Mary rolling out there, getting a parking spot, and bringing us some fantastic live views. So I will tell everybody the wind is still pretty tough out there. It's like 20 to 25 gusting, and we may have some camera shake on occasion, just to set everybody's expectations there. But we are here to talk through what's going on at Boca Chica and what you can expect, or at least what we think there is that supports a hop of a flight of SN9. So again, I'm John Galloway. You'll hear me talking quite a bit here. And then I've already introduced Mary, Boca Chica gal. She is out there with this remote camera setup on the side of the road, bringing us a live view of Starship. You'll see cars driving by and stuff like that, clouds going past and everything. We are able to bring you this fantastic view because Mary has rolled out there. And it's not about just, she's just going to roll out and, okay, cool, now let's set up the camera and go. She actually had to secure a parking space hours ago, actually. She's been out there for well over an hour, I think almost 2 hours, and she got a good spot where she could get a view of 7.2 and Starship SN9 there. So it's not like she's just, showed up and brought the camera. She has been in stakeout mode herself, making sure that she could bring us some fantastic live views. Also, doing some commentary back from the studio. I think we're joined by Chris Gebhardt. Chris, do we have you on comms right now, or did I introduce you way too early? Talking very slowly, waiting for the microphone to unmute. And let's go on to Michael Baylor. We've also got Michael Baylor here in the studio. Michael, you got your ears on?
Yes. So it looks like we are still standing by for some more farm information, but as of now, as you can see on our ticker, the current earliest wind hop time is tomorrow, Thursday, January 28th, and we can talk about that more as we get started with this stream today.
All right. Good deal. And then, Chris, I think Chris might have had to step away for a second there. Let me know about Michael's audio as well. I think he started off a little hot there, but I think we backed him off a bit. So, chat, let me know how Michael was. And Chris, how you doing?
I am back. Yes. Sorry.
I tried to talk as slow as I could. I know.
Nope. We were doing fine. Everything was great. And right when I thought you were transitioning to introduce me, Starbuck exploded in a series of barking because, and I kid you not, a person walked on the sidewalk in front of our house, and that was and did not have a permit to do so, and she was quite upset.
Well, Chris, for people who might not know, Starbuck, what did you have, like a viper explode, or?
Pretty much. No, no. One of our dogs is named Starbuck after Katie Sackhoff's character on Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica, good deal. So Chris will be joining us here today as well. And then I think that Jack is trying to get something going on as well. Jack actually went out to the community trash cleanup day. I don't know what else to call it. It was a community trash cleanup day. So he was out there helping clean up part of the beach. And I'm going to hear from him shortly, I think, to see what we get from Jack. I might actually have a feed from him, but Michael and Chris, if y'all could give us an update where we're at with road closures and TFRs and maritime restrictions and all the different things that we need in order to progress towards a hop. Michael, do you have that ready?
Yeah, can you actually go to the road closure scene quickly?
I can.
And you will notice that when DOS goes to the road closure scene, by the way, that WED Dead Day, that is from the Cameron County website, so that is not our typo. We're just scraping the Cameron County website, and they have a misspelling of Wednesday. But anyways, as you can see on the road closures, there is no road closures currently scheduled for any time in the future. So as of now, no road closure for a potential test flight tomorrow, although that could change at any minute. So we're continuing to watch the road closures. We are expecting new road closures to be filed. But as of now, no further road closures for testing. So that is something to watch. And if we do not see that happen within the next couple of hours, it might start to be a concerning sign for a potential test flight tomorrow. But that is where we are at on the road closures at the moment.
Good deal. What about TFRs and maritime restrictions, all those other things, as we have a concrete truck driving by?
In terms of TFRs, there are TFRs currently for both Thursday and Friday. So that's a good sign. But there are not maritime restrictions yet, although the maritime restrictions usually come, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. I don't think there are maritime restrictions out yet, but those usually do not come out until the last minute, so we should expect those this evening if they're going to attempt a test flight yet. And then I've also not, we should also expect, you know, they're going to have to evacuate the village and whatnot at some point, so if they're really going to fly tomorrow, the villagers, such as Mary, should expect to be getting updates this afternoon. So those are the different indications we're looking to see happen. But as of now, the TFRs are the only firm indication that a test flight is at least somewhat planned for tomorrow. Although until we start to get more convincing evidence, such as road closures or Mary getting told to evacuate or the maritime restrictions going up, until we see multiple points of firm information, I would not put too much hope to tomorrow yet.
And
Gotcha.
And wasn't there something? I mean, Elon tweeted yesterday, right, that they were hoping for FAA approval later today.
Oh, geez.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well,
so
he said later today, like in the middle of the night, right? So what did he mean by later today? I think was a question that a lot of people had.
I kind of I saw that. I don't know. I mean, it was several hours after midnight, no matter what time zone you were in the United States. I don't know. I kind of definitely took that to mean Wednesday for FAA approval.
Yeah.
But it kind of begs the question, though, if they didn't have FAA approval, how did we get airspace closure notices for earlier in the week? And how did we have a test that passed a flight readiness review and seemed to be headed for a liftoff if there wasn't FAA approval?
I mean, is it like
How
two
can we
different
get
departments?
closure for
I don't
those?
know.
Yeah.
Like,
they had the,
Yeah.
I believe they had the same problem with S8 though. So the specific they have FAA approval to do testing operations. They just don't have FAA approval to fly. So they can technically do everything up to T-minus 0 seconds. So I think what they were hoping to happen was that they were hoping that the FAA would sign off on the launch at like T-minus 1 hour. They assumed they could get they assumed they could get final word from the FAA that they could fly at some point on Monday. Of course, that didn't happen, and then it looked like that it was going to be a few more days until they got approval. So that's why I think they pushed the test to Thursday. But they do have approval to do static fires and ground testing, but they do not have the final go-ahead from the FAA to actually lift off the pad at the moment. And I think that's slightly because SpaceX keeps changing the trajectory. We've seen it been bouncing back and forth between 12.5 and 10 kilometers. In fact, I'm not even sure which one of those it is right now. I've seen some signs that it might be going back to 10 kilometers, but nothing firm yet. And I think depending on the winds on the day they're going to fly, that altitude could change again. So
I wonder if that might be part of it. Like, I wonder if maybe they had FAA approval for the 12.5 kilometer, but if they lowered it to 10, they didn't necessarily have full approval for that yet, and bouncing back and forth between them, maybe that had something to do with it.
yeah, and like in all SpaceX testing, they are refining the launch trajectory up until the last minute. So that does not help with a government agency who, I mean, to be fair to the FAA, they are a government agency, so they're never going to be as fast as a private company. But also, once the FAA signs off on this, if anything were to go wrong, the FAA is going to be having to answer a lot of questions. So you can see why the FAA is going to be very conservative, because they are the authority that has to sign off on this, and if something were to go wrong, they are the authority that will come under scrutiny. So they are trying to do everything they can to make sure that they do their job correctly in the interest of public safety.
Yeah. So again, y'all, we continue to watch exactly what's going to happen. We're missing a couple of the key features for tomorrow, specifically no road closures for tomorrow, Thursday, have been put out yet, but that can happen. It could happen. But also no communication to the residents on evacuation. So is it still possible? Is SpaceX waiting for FAA approval? What exactly is going on? As of right now, missing those key components, it's not really hopeful for tomorrow on Thursday, right?
If I was to place a bet, if you forced me to place a bet on tomorrow or later in the week, I would obviously bet later in the week, because there's still a lot of missing components for tomorrow, given that we're already, the day before. So I'm not sure how feasible Thursday is. It's certainly not out of the question, but if the test were to slip to Friday or Saturday, I would not at all be surprised.
Yeah. And Mary just brought up another fantastic point as well. Switching over to the beach view, Tankzilla is sort of in the way. That's actually on or right next to the landing pad. And with Tankzilla, the big crane over there, pretty difficult for SN9 to land on the landing pad if the crane is taking up that spot. Unless Elon's plans to catch things that are falling out of the sky have really gotten out of control, I would expect that big crane to get out of the way before they actually try a flight, right, y'all?
Gosh, can you imagine that, DOS? The crane just goes, "Come here!"
Come here. I don't even know how you do it. Like, I don't even have a plan how you could use that crane.
I do. It's like a lasso, right? So you just spin it around and you like lasso SN9 out of the air. Like, yeah, could work.
It's like that backhoe that's spinning in the middle of that pond and the guy's like water skiing. That's how you try to do it. You try to wrap the cable around. No, we made all that up, y'all. That's not true. That's not what they're trying to do. But Mary,
I think that's
absolutely
the quickest we've descended into absurdity on this stream.
Well, Mary is absolutely correct with that big crane over there on the landing pad. I expect we're gonna see a little bit of motion by that crane before anything else happens. Dude, let's talk about that for a little bit. So the crane wasn't out there, and then we have these, are we gonna try to fly? Is it not gonna happen? And it never happened. They never even evacuated the residents, so it just wasn't gonna happen. And then we saw them roll the crane out yesterday, sort of through the smoke that was blowing up from Mexico. We were having some crop burnings going on, and a ton of smoke blew through the area yesterday, but they rolled that crane out. And so why would they roll the crane out if they're going to fly SN9? I don't know that they will fly SN9 with that big crane anywhere near the launch pad. Chris, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that crane can be anywhere around there?
Yeah, well, it's a good it's a good question. It is on the landing pad, correct?
Yes.
That much we know. Yeah. I mean, I cannot imagine they would want to leave a gigantic thing out there like that. If I had to guess, it's either some indication. It's either an indication that SN9's not flying anytime soon, or that maybe they plan to. I don't know. I don't know why else it would be out there, because they can just roll 7.2 away, right? They don't need the crane for that. Maybe SN10's coming out to the launch pad.
I don't think the crane's at its final location though. I think they take the crane to the landing pad because that's where they can put the wood I don't know exactly what to call it, but it's like wooden ramps they drive the crane up on, or they drive. So the crane, when it's rolled out, it's on top of the self-propelled modular transporters. So to get the crane off, they have like wood ramps that the crane's tracks go on top of, and they are raised up so that the self-propelled modular transporters can just lower the crane slightly and then back out underneath.
Right.
So I think the reason they have the crane at the landing pad is that's where they unload it. I don't think that's necessarily the crane's final location. We will likely see them move the crane to another location at the launch site. So I don't think the crane will be there when SN9 flies. The question is, will SN9 be somewhere else at the launch site when SN9 flies, though? And why is the crane at the launch site? There's two reasons I can think of. The first reason is they want to process SN9 as quickly as possible after it lands. Now there is one issue, whereas if SN9 lands correctly, they don't really have proper ground support equipment to hook up to it. So it's from my understanding, it will take some time to save the vehicle, like we saw with SN5 and SN6 after they landed, where the pad had to stay cleared for several hours, possibly even over a day, while the residual propellant burned off. So we will likely see that again with SN9. That being said, as soon as they can return to the pad, they will want to secure SN9 as quickly as possible, especially with all of these high winds, because SN9 is a very tall vehicle. There will be no propellant in it, or hardly any propellant in it after it lands. And it will have flaps which can be folded in slightly, but still, not a ton. So there's a huge surface area of a relatively light vehicle and potentially high winds. They're going to want to get a crane to secure that thing quickly. So that could be one reason I can think of. The other reason would be the SN10 rollout. We have seen from aerial photography from RGV, and I don't know if Jack saw it too when he went out, but there are some wood planks set up at the Pad A stand where SN10 is going to go. So an SN10 rollout is another potential reason for that crane being out there, but I am not sure why they would roll out SN10 before SN9 flies.
Yeah, I don't know, unless Elon just wanted the photo op with two starships on the pad at the same time. I mean, they sent it out there for something,
They very well might want that.
That's like the entire reason is just that. And I wanted to show this really quick. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not saying this is what it is. I'm just sort of offering this as a potential explanation if it is SN10's rollout. So we know 9 and 10 are made very similarly, right? We know the major change that's coming is on SN15. We also know there's an 11 sitting in there,
right?
But we know there's that big change coming with SN15. So if you're in an accelerated rapid sequence test and development program, if you have two that are the same, it's a slightly less marginal risk when you've already got another one of their same design sitting there after them, but also like the new design that you'll learn more from and that has some of the improvements. So yeah, it could be definitely a photo op because baller move on that part if you haul the other one out there too. But also you could kind of look at it from the risk assessment of, okay, well, if SN9 does launch but fails to land and does kind of take out SN10 in the process, have we lost an immense amount, or have we just lost one test article, so then we just move to the next one?
Yeah, that makes sense. We're gonna keep watching what is happening with this crane. I mean, maybe it's over there just so they can unload it. It's gonna stay out of the way. Maybe SN10 is gonna roll out. Maybe they're gonna move SN9 to another pad. I don't know why they would do that. Maybe there's just some other piece of equipment that's inbound, and they're gonna need the big crane to pick it up. It's not completely sure exactly what they were gonna do, but we're gonna keep watching it. And I wanted to do this really quickly, right? We have all these different views. The crane is huge. Starship's huge. Looking at it from the village over here, you can sort of see the crane in the background. And even if I go all the way, let's see here, all the way in so that we can, there we go. I think that's about the maximum zoom that robot has. And then we can go over to the other view as well, right? If I'm over this way and we're sort of looking at what's going on, we've got, the crane over from this angle. Let me see here. There we go. So here's another view of the crane, and I've come over here and I'm like, all right, let's get a little closer look on the crane, zoom in, and all right, yep, there's the crane. It's good. But if you really want to look at the crane, then you've got Mary's camera, which is literally just almost right up next to the crane. Got a little bit of a hiccup there as I switched over to it. But Mary went ahead and turned around a little bit so that we could see the crane there, and that's the difference. Like, we have a robot over here and a robot over there, but then Mary rolls right up next to the test site. She's right on the side of the road, and I don't think that we are ever going to beat that with a robot that we can put anywhere. So again, thanks to Mary for being out there to bring us the fantastic shots. But we'll keep watching that crane and see what the deal is with it. What else? What else is on our list?
I just wanted to
Yeah.
point out, Mary's shot, you can actually see that wood ramp I was talking about. Don't know what the technical term is, but you can see those self-propelled modular transporters. Those are those red. That's that red piece underneath. That's the transporter that drove it out to the pad. Then you can see that the treads on Tankzilla are on the wooden part, so that will allow Tankzilla to roll off that wooden ramp and get away from those self-propelled modular transporters. So that's a great shot, Mary.
Gotcha. All right. Well, again, folks, we just wanted to go live for a little bit here and let you all know what was going on with Starship SN9. I know there's a ton of different people who are curious, was it going to launch yesterday? Is it going to launch today? Is it going to launch tomorrow? Again, the status update based on everything that we're looking at. We know SpaceX wants to get this thing launched, but some things seem to be working against it right now. No road closures for tomorrow, not really that big of a deal. Cameron County might have just not updated the website yet, right? Maybe that person was off today, had a doctor's appointment, or whoever types that into the website. We know that they're still looking at TFRs and the maritime closures, but that crane is out there. And so how does the crane affect things? Is it even safe to launch SN9 with the crane anywhere near the test site? Like, is the crane rated for that? Is there some structure of the crane that shouldn't be shook by Raptors at close range? It's a little bit tricky from this shot because of the telephoto compression. The crane is a further distance away than you would think. If I look at it from here, you can sort of see that there is just a good amount of space between them. Let's see here. Just lining it up. Go ahead, Chris.
In a test campaign, when you're coming in like that, you want as flat a surface as possible. I think the bigger question is just, do you want to risk a crane like that? And I can't imagine the answer to that is yes, which is why I'm definitely leaning toward, like, I gotta assume SN10's gonna do something here. Like,
think about it, Chris. Like, if you have a crane like that out there, you're not playing around when you light 3 Raptors and you fly 3 Raptors. And let's assume that everything lands okay, right? If it lands on the pad just fine and you don't have any big rapid unplanned disassembly or anything like that, it's still a lot of vibration. We've seen debris flying. All sorts of different things. It's a tough environment out there. Clearly the tank farm and stuff like that are okay. And we've seen lifts that are nearby and that sort of thing. But that big crane is a serious piece of equipment. And crane operators may be saying, like, whatever, DOS, that crane is going to be fine. But do you really risk something that has these big, massive loads? It's having to carry these things around. You don't play around with that. Is that crane certified to continue to be operated after a rocket takes off and lands that close to it and, heaven forbid, crashes onto the pad or something some distance away from the crane? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that that's something that the crane designers take into account,
Well, yeah. It's a good way to put that. I don't think there are many crane meetings that are like, okay, can it survive a rocket landing that goes awry? Although, SpaceX will have to have those, considering the plan to just catch the Super Heavy booster out of
That's true. But if you're doing
that,
you design the platform or robotic arm or whatever Elon's going to use to withstand those forces. And I don't know that Liebherr went through. I'm sure there's like vibration and conditions, like it can handle these winds and all the normal things. But is a Raptor a normal thing?
Well, but to be fair, the crew access arms at launch pads survive every single launch that goes off those pads with no problem.
True.
So I mean, now granted, yes, they're not trying to catch a booster. I'm not I'm not saying like you could just swing the crew access arm at 39A out over like no, but I mean like arms do survive, right? These things,
Yeah.
and they are meant and built to survive them. So sort of just reversing the process, right? It's a different set of considerations, but I mean, you can certainly design an arm and a tower that can take that type of weight. But again, it's to your point, Das. You're designing it that way from the beginning, and I just don't see how it would be beneficial to have that sitting there as SN9 decides to come down out of the sky.
Yeah, that's
So, I mean, the question is then, if it is for SN10 rollout, right now, today the winds are, let's see, what our weather says, but 30 knots. So that I can tell you right now. I don't know what the exact wind limit is on an SN10 rollout, but I can tell you with confidence that 30 knots is out of bounds for a potential SN10 rollout. There are strict wind limits on those moves.
go ahead.
What? Oh yeah, I was saying there are strict wind limits on moving large objects like that. So, oh wow.
Really
that.
quickly, I swapped over to our fleet cam feed because Octograbber is
Oh?
actually rolling out from under. There he goes, right there. I hope I'm on the right feed, aren't I? Yeah, it's still rolling. So sorry about that, y'all. Fleet cam brought to my attention that Octograbber was rolling, and so we cut over to our camera live from Port Canaveral to see that robotic Octograbber that secures the Falcon 9 boosters. That's a really rare thing to see There he goes. Octograbber in motion. It's the white thing that's just on the deck of the ship underneath the Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 there. And I know I completely interrupted. This is just a treat to be able to share, right? It's got the white bar on the ground with the holes in it, like a line of holes there. That's the Octograbber. And it's already retracted its robotic arms. Go ahead.
Oh, but I was going to say, to be fair, like it's been wonderfully busy at Port Canaveral. I mean, yesterday when this one was coming in to port, the booster that had launched the Starlink mission right before it was being hauled out of port to make room. And I mean, it was kind of funny watching the transporter, the booster transporter, take it out and then come back to get this one. It's encrypted. I mean, it's like a factory. Just
Trevor in chat says this is what happens with mine. It gets stuck under tables and stuff. It's like
mine gets stuck under the couch. Yes.
So again, we're talking about Starship, but they just brought that to my attention. I wanted to switch over really quickly. I'm not sure. They do need to clear that all the way out from under, and I think over on Fleet Cam they're going to lift that booster up shortly. So if I see that happening, we may switch back here again. But again, we're here to talk about Starship. There is the Starship shot again. So I completely apologize for interrupting there. It was just one of those quick things.
No, good. But as I was saying, the winds right now are too high to roll out SN10, so I'm not sure if the weather would be more favorable tomorrow. I think the winds are actually supposed to still be pretty strong tomorrow until the late afternoon, when the winds are supposed to lighten up. So if SN10 rolls out tomorrow, then they take at least a day to put it onto the pad and get it all set up. Then they have to potentially roll the crane back to the build site. So if that crane is really there for SN10, what I'm saying is it might be more than a day or two before SN9 flies.
Yeah, and do we think they'd end up doing the same thing again, Michael? That we see, like if for some reason they can't go by Friday, that they would skip over the weekend, or do you think they might actually go for it on the weekend and just request the beach closure from the county? Anyway,
I think if it has a good chance of being ready to launch on a weekend, meaning they have FAA approval and all the correct components are in place, the weather looks good, etc., I think they would go for a weekend closure. SpaceX is allowed to close the beach on a weekend, but they are asked by the county to minimize that. So there has to be a good reason, and they have to limit the amount of times if they do that. But if the weather is perfect on the weekend, and it's looking more iffy in the weekdays, SpaceX may say, we're going to do a weekend closure. We will use, I don't know if there's a specific number of allotted times they're allowed to do it per year, but they can do it a couple times. So I think if all the cards are falling into place, and the weekend looks like it would be useful, SpaceX may try to do that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we've talked in the past about trying to minimize beach closures and testing on the weekends, and then there was some weird COVID time in there where it wasn't that big of a deal. But we do know that Cameron County has asked that they try to limit the public, or they limit their impact on the public being able to access Boca Chica Beach, right? But it doesn't mean that they absolutely can't do it. It's sort of a special case. They need to be very careful when they decide that that's what they need to do, you know?
I mean, even Friday afternoon is within that realm of time they're trying to avoid. So we'll see if the test gets pushed to Friday. What happens? We have also seen temporary flight restrictions for SN9 on the weekend. I think there were temporary flight restrictions for Saturday and Sunday of this past week. So it's definitely possible. We could see it happen. That's something to watch for. But we do have a lot of super chats right now that we should probably get through.
Yeah, I can grab some of those really quickly. KD, thank you so much for the 10 pounds, saying thanks all of you at NSF. We appreciate you, KD. We got Randy Sassman that says, guys and gals that put all this together, thank you. Best coverage ever. We appreciate you, Randy. Thanks for the kind words. Michael Prim.
And Dolphins, go back to fleet camp, please.
Okay, are they lifting?
They're moving the Octograbber steadily now.
Let's see real quick. Oh, yeah, they actually
yes.
rotated it.
And then it stopped. It was like going for 15 seconds. I was waiting before I interrupted you to make sure it was going to keep moving, and then it stopped. But it looks like it's.
That's
stopped.
because they're watching our stream and they're like,
Yeah.
they're not looking. Move it.
quick, move it. A lot of the stuff on Fleet Cam. Oh, there it goes. A lot of the stuff on Fleet Cam is much better consumed as a time lapse. So you can see the equipment moving on the deck right now. That is the Octograbber, the robotic securing device that they drive under Falcon 9 and use it to keep Falcon 9 from falling off the deck of the drone ship. And it's very rare to see those things move. They sort of sneak around, and they're very low profile too. So that's why we hopped back over real quick. See, Michael, they didn't completely leave you hanging. All right, so I'm going to read a couple more super chats here. Let's see. Michael Prim said $5 for naming your dog after Starbuck. Chris, that's you.
Ah. Yes. Thank you.
All right, and we've got wow, Vintage Mechanics here. Do Tempe Vintage Mechanics as a membership. Thanks for the support there, Vintage Mechanics. We've got Angie T. Here's a good question. What is a good source for local Boca Chica weather and upper atmospheric conditions? Does anybody have any favorite sites that they look at? I spend a lot of time on Windy.
Yeah, that might be the same one I am. That's exactly where I'm going right now.
Yeah.
No, I use one called Ventusky, VENTUSKY.com, which gives you it gives you radar, satellite, clouds, but in particularly it gives you wind speed at the various levels in the atmosphere from 10 meters above the ground all the way up to 30,000 to 30 kilometers. So that's the one I tend to use for that.
Check different levels and shears and stuff like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So sometimes when you hear me go, I don't know, the upper level winds look iffy during a Falcon 9 launch, it's usually because I'm on Ventusky. I have no idea how you actually say that.
Me neither.
But yeah, it's usually because I'm looking on there and I'm looking at the shear as the wind direction changes, going, we'll see.
Angie T, hope that helps out a little bit. I think a lot of us mostly look at winds because winds are some of the biggest issues that we've heard about. And so, I guess, I don't know, Chris, one of the most frequent reasons that launches get scrubbed? I mean, winds, electrical conditions, I know, cloud rules.
I wouldn't say upper level winds are the reason the vast majority of them get scrubbed. It's definitely Falcon 9's nemesis.
Really?
And Falcon Heavy's nemesis, but that's really just because the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are so tall and so skinny. I mean, they just get slammed. I mean, as they're going up versus like the fatter, thicker Atlases and other vehicles, right, that have a bit more if they hit a wind gust, there's a bit more stuff there to prevent a rapid movement that your thrust vector control system can't compensate for.
Right.
Right. But yeah, no, upper level winds are definitely the nemesis of the Falcon 9, but not so much other rockets. It's electrical, it's other types of weather that usually ends up getting the other vehicles.
Good deal. I'm going to try to read a couple more because we're like 20 minutes behind. John Miles says, thanks for the updates. Shout out to Michael B. in Next Spaceflight. Love the app. Added sub-dive klaxon to 10 minutes per launch. Wakes you up. So you've got like a special noise. All right. So again, y'all, Michael is the creator of nextspaceflight.com, which is an app that you can put on your Android or iOS. There's a website too, and it'll give you notifications when there's launches occurring. You can look up information on how many times has this Falcon 9 flown and all that sort of stuff. The Random Tube is a new membership here, so we appreciate you there. Michelle Pierce, thank you so much for the support. Scott Hoyland says, launch SN9, SN10 the same day. Wind FAA delays are an issue. Launch 9 and 10 at the same time. We appreciate you there, Scott. We'll continue to watch. Like we said, they need to get those road closures filed. Not a big deal there, but also a big deal is they need to give the residents proper notice to evacuate. There are still people that live there in Boca Chica Village. Mary is one of the very few people who still lives there, and the residents do need some sort of proper notice. It shouldn't just be like, okay, we're launching in an hour, you got to pack up your stuff and get out of here. So hopefully we will definitely stand by and see if the residents get any sort of evacuation notice, because if we get through this evening and the residents haven't heard anything from SpaceX, I think that's a pretty good indication maybe they're not going tomorrow. And that crane out there too, we've talked about the crane as well. Caroline, thank you for the new membership. We appreciate you. And then we've got Daniel Stein. Ooh, too soon. Now that Jack is a Brownsville local, which does he like better, Mr. Taco or Ultimo Taco? I haven't eaten either of those. We'll see if we can ask Jack that question. He's out there on the beach cleaning up right now, I think, still.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really cool thing that people are doing down there. I believe it was organized in part by Space Padre Isle.
Yeah,
and our friends Gene and Rachel over there. But I like the idea of the beach cleanup. I like what they're doing here. I tweeted this a little earlier today, but space exploration and protection of the environment, conservation, things like that have really always gone hand in hand, and it's actually like a perfect marriage, because you need space centers encompass vast amounts of land for safety reasons, but their actual footprint, the part of it that they build on, is very, very small. So these places end up becoming wonderful de facto conservation areas. In fact, Kennedy Space Center is located on the Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge.
Yep.
And they didn't take that. They didn't carve when Kennedy, and Kennedy actually controls it, right? When you are in the Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge, whether from the north or the or the west, coming from Titusville or the New Smyrna Beach Edgewater area in the county to the north, you pass that line, NASA management right there. So it's really nice to also see, like the organization or the effort to organize to just do something nice and clean it up, and I saw someone say something earlier online about like cleaning up the mess that's there, but they're not cleaning up SpaceX. They're cleaning up just like the general environment, like when you go to the beach and you see a bottle on the beach, like that's what they're doing, and it's nice to see.
Yeah,
really nice.
I think the other thing is Starship and Boca Chica are such a popular destination for people to come by and see Starship now, right? And so you have what was originally sort of just an area. Maybe people would come and go fishing or go kayak on the beach or just go hang out at the beach for the day. There's more traffic coming through there because it's a bit of a roadside tourist stop. You can drive all the way down there. And now you get more people that are there, more cars on the side of the road. Just when you get human beings gathered in some place, we do tend to drop some trash around. So there's a little bit more stuff that's built up just because it's popular. People want to go see this stuff, and so there's more trash being generated and unfortunately dropped on the side of the road. So, Chris, you're absolutely right. They're not out there cleaning up after SpaceX. It's not like SpaceX has dropped a bunch of stuff on the side of the road, but it is really cool.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Jack, we got you.
Yep, still cleaning up, but I can hear what you guys are saying, and I just wanted to chime in briefly and basically concur. It's like we're just cleaning up normal beach trash that accrues. Also, whenever the tides come in really high, the tides can pull in garbage as well. So it's not like a SpaceX cleanup after them specific thing. I mean, the launch site and build site definitely do generate their own garbage, but it's normal beach garbage plus everything else. And
Right.
and also, if you've never been somewhere that's really windy, I mean, the wind today is really tricky for cleaning up because it's just blowing the trash bag that you're holding all around. So it's like hard to
Oh.
even put anything in it. And then when you put something in it, you have to hold it closed. Otherwise, it'll just blow out again. So we picked a tricky day to do it. But point there being that if you've never been somewhere super windy, it's almost like airlock protocol. When you get out of your car, you need to
Oh.
open one door only. If you open two doors of your car, if you pull up with your partner or whatever somewhere that's super windy and you both open your doors, bam, suddenly you've got a wind tunnel. So
Yep.
a lot of it's just the general unsuspecting public, I imagine, that come out here to see Starship or to go to the beach, and they open up one door, they open up another door, and all of a sudden, whatever loose thing that was floating around the cab of the car they didn't even realize suddenly gets blown around. So yeah, I just wanted to chime in with that. I'm going to get back to cleaning. But yeah.
All right. Well, good deal, y'all. Again, that's the voice of Jack Beyer. He's out there doing some beach cleanup with I guess it was organized by, I think, Space Padre Isle, and I think the county was involved in. Well, I'm not sure as well. I'm not sure that those dumpsters
don't
are
think-
always there.
Yeah,
Are they
those
always there,
dumpsters
Jack?
are always there.
They're
Yeah,
always
they're
there now.
there.
Okay.
Yep. This one
Gotcha.
was organized by Gene and Rachel, and it was inspired by, there was a scrub day for SN8. A guy on Twitter named Emmett put one together for Isla Blanca Park, and everyone came out, and that was really fun. So Gene and Rachel at Space Padre Isle decided to do another one this time for SN9, which I think we should just make it a tradition at this point.
I agree, and it's good to see like the space family coming together out there. Everybody loves to go and see Starship. It's nice to see people getting together to try and clean things up a little bit, or keep things clean. Is a good way to put it as well. So
Yeah, and there's so many people out here to watch Starship, and if it's not going to do anything, we might as well make use of our time. And Austin's out here, Trevor's out here, a bunch of people are out here. I've seen some familiar faces actually that were at the first one, so really cool. It's always more people than I expect to show up too, which is really neat. So.
good deal. Again, y'all, I'm just going to repeat. We knew that a bunch of people were wondering what was going on here today, and we wanted to give some updates on what's happening with SN9. When is it going to fly, etc., etc. And I think the answer is it could fly as early as tomorrow. There are still some pieces missing. It's not looking great for tomorrow, though. Between no notice to the residents and the crane being out there, there are some things that make us think that maybe it's not happening tomorrow. Of course, we never know. It could be the evening that crane picks up something and then it leaves the launch site, and then tomorrow morning everything's completely clear. Road closures filed. Residents know that they're going to evacuate, and they go for it. SpaceX doesn't telegraph those publicly a lot of the times, and so we just have to sort of wait until we get the notifications. Chris, did you get were there a couple questions in regular in chat there? Not super chats, but just regular
There were,
questions?
Yeah, there were. Oh yeah. Yes, we had a question here from Ross asking if we ever heard what pressure SN 7.2 reached in its proof test yesterday. Do we know an answer to that, Michael?
Elon said
Okay.
it was passed. He did not say at what pressure they were targeting. So unfortunately, we do not know what pressure it reached, but we do expect them to do additional testing with SN 7.2. So we should see them pressurize it all the way until it fails at some point. Although I'm not sure when that's going to happen with SN9. And of course, if SN9 were to fail its landing, SN 7.2 is sort of near the landing pad, so I think there is a risk that SN 7.2 could get damaged by an SN9 anomaly if SN9 were to fly before SN 7.2 is pressurized to failure. However, SN 7.2 is just a small test tank, so if they were to have to build a new one, I don't think it would be too big of a deal.
Gotcha. And do we also think that they're going to? Flash Gordon was asking, do we also think that 7.2 will be tested to destruction like the other ones were, or tested
Yes.
to failure?
Yeah, I think that
Yes.
is the plan, but again, I don't know if that's when that's going to happen with SN9. And as I mentioned, I could see a possibility of SN 7.2 being damaged by SN9's flight.
Gotcha. So
Speaking
yeah,
speaking of that,
yeah, go ahead, Das.
let's talk a little bit more about the cryo test. We've got this shot of 7.2 there. We know that there was some testing that's going on, but sort of at the beginning of the stream, I joked it's still there. It's in one piece. Do we think they're actually going to pop this thing, like the question is asking here? And is there anything that indicates when that might be happening?
Well, we'll see what the road closures say. You know, if the weather is really bad tomorrow and they decide they don't want to make a flight attempt, maybe they will test SN 7.2 to failure tomorrow. That's a possibility. But, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But again, no road closures yet. So those lack of road closures are a bad thing for SN9 testing. They're also a bad thing for SN 7.2 testing. And really quickly, Ross, can we go
Yep.
to the other camera because we have some news on the production site.
Yeah, look at that. I was actually just was texting that to Mary as well to make sure she knew. But check this out, y'all. Looking back over towards the production site, that's a booster moving. I mean,
Yeah.
really slowly, but
Hang
That
on, I
booster-
gotta bring that window from monitor 3 to monitor 1 closer to my
Yeah.
face.
Yes, that booster is being suspended by that crane, and Mary yesterday saw a 2-ring stack being moved into the high bay. So I imagine they're probably stacking that tall booster section on top of those 2 rings that Mary saw yesterday, move into the high bay.
yeah, again, y'all, there's two things going on back there. Inside the high bay, you can just see the forward flap of SN10. Hopefully next up after SN9. At this point, it may go before SN9. And the other thing, you can see a little bit more of it, but the thing that's on the crane right now, that's actually stacked for a super heavy booster, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
that is the liquid oxygen section. Interestingly enough, it now appears that the liquid oxygen tank on Super Heavy booster is going to be on top, versus on Starship it's on the bottom. So that is the top portion of Super Heavy we're looking at right there, which again is a liquid oxygen tank, and then the methane tank will go on the bottom of Super Heavy.
So like just like the size is just so impressive there. That's the oxygen tank, not the whole thing. And look at how tall it already is compared to Starship.
Yep, still the engine section with the thrust dome and the methane tank to come. So
All right. I'm going to read out a couple more super chats here. We'll get a couple more questions as well. Again, y'all, we wanted to go live and just show y'all what's happening live out there at Boca Chica. Of course, we get the daily videos just about every single day right here on this channel for NASA Spaceflight. You will see daily videos coming from Mary showing exactly what was going on over the course of the day. But today, we knew a lot of people were wondering what was happening, so we figured we'd go live for just a little bit, answer some questions, read some questions and stuff like that. So thank y'all so much for hanging out with us here. Oh wow, here we go. Here is Mr. Huggy asking, how many days do they have for the launch window? What if they decide they want a rapid turnaround like 24 hours? They're nowhere near 24-hour turnarounds. They have a long way to go before they're going to be able to do that. But how many days do they have for the launch window? It's not like a regular rocket launch window where the question is, how long can we get this, or sorry, at what time of day do we need to launch this in order to get into the right orbit? Or if we're going interplanetary, how long, like what month do we need to do that in order to get into the right orbit if we're going to Mars or whatever, right? So I think that the experimental program doesn't really have launch windows per se, because they're just trying to hop up to 10 or 12 or whatever kilometers. They, as we've seen, they can actually push that back quite a bit, because SN9 has been out there for 39 days and it still hasn't flown. So does that summarize that correctly, y'all?
yeah, it's a private range. It's SpaceX's a launch site. It's not a launch site that's part of a Air Force station or a Space Force station or Space Force base, whatever you want to call it these days. But so SpaceX does not have to work with a range of some kind in order to coordinate launch activities. they can schedule launches whenever they are allowed to by the county. So the county has to sign off on the closures, but that's about it. And the county is pretty easy going with SpaceX because they obviously like the jobs that SpaceX provides and whatnot. So SpaceX is a good relationship with the county, and we have seen the other aspect is the FAA, because the FAA has to close the airspace. But we have seen temporary flight restrictions. They basically keep adding a new temporary flight restriction for every delay. So we've seen like a week solid's worth of temporary flight restrictions. Of course, they end up getting canceled most of the time before they go into effect. But the FAA does not seem to have too much of a problem filing a relatively small temporary flight restriction for each flight. It's still a significant area, but in terms of what an orbital launch would require, it's quite a bit smaller, and it doesn't seem like to be too big of a problem. Whereas in Florida, the temporary flight restrictions that are required for a launch from Cape Canaveral are actually pretty disruptive towards the airlines. So they try to limit those, and the FAA they will shorten launch windows at times for flights. Like we saw SpaceX's in-flight abort test, SpaceX wanted a huge window all day long because they were not targeting an orbit, but and weather was a concern, but the FAA did not want a long launch window because of the disruption to flights. But in Boca Chica, at least for now, this does not seem to be as much of a problem. So long story short, they can fly whenever they want.
They can fly whenever they want.
Yeah, and one of the differences that in terms of what Michael was talking about in terms of how long the airspace closures can last, closing the airspace around Florida out of the Kennedy Space Center or Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, when you are talking about whether you're talking about northeast missions to the station or geostationary missions that go east, you're closing airspace in a very heavily trafficked international flight route. And national flight route as well, as especially from the Atlanta to Miami area, and DC and New York and Boston down to Miami as well. So it's a very heavily trafficked route that you're closing. So that's why we've seen the FAA say to SpaceX, look, you're launching all these missions, that's fine, we don't have a problem with that, but we can't be closing the airspace for 4 hours at a time, every few days.
Right.
Over Florida, we can close it for 2 hours instead of 4. So that's where we've seen some launch windows get constrained, not by orbital mechanics, but by the FAA's willingness to close the airspace for that long.
Yeah, that makes good sense. It's always a balance, right? Especially when you're closing down public access to the beach, and you're closing down the airspace, and you're closing down the waterways, and all that sort of stuff. You want to have flexibility to get your test done, but you also need to keep in mind that you're closing down all of these public, I was going to say public amenities. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they are. A public beach, that's a public amenity. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was the right word, but I guess you're right. It sounds right now that I said it out loud. There was a question over here from Ragfire asking, is 7.2 close enough to to SN9 that they worry about 7.2 hurting SN9? So I switched over to the beach camera here, and I don't think that's a big concern because they don't have an engine.
No, and I can answer that right quick. No, it's not, because there's always a potential in these test tanks when they're testing something new that they could fail during normal pressure testing, not just fail when you're pressurizing them to failure. They would not have rolled 7.2 out if they thought the risk of it taking out almost said 7.9.
It feels like it.
Keeping track of these is it's amazing sometimes. No, they would not have done the test that they did earlier in the week if they thought there was a significant risk to losing SN9. But remember, there's also the balancing act that they're doing here, because they don't just have 9, they have SN10 that's the same configuration and SN11 that's the same configuration. So the thought process of what risk is acceptable, right, we'll see that change depending on what flight article is out there, right? Like they wouldn't have done this for SN8 because it was the first one configured to fly, right? They're not going to do something risky with SN15 because it's the new one of the new generation, right?
Right.
But you can see them start taking different risk postures and different risk acceptance when you've got other ones waiting in the queue, and this isn't the first one of the new design cycle.
Yeah. And remember that SN7.2 uses liquid nitrogen for its testing. there's no chance of an explosion, and it's basically just parts going flying when it's a rapid release of pressure that could
Right.
cause problems. But it is chained down, so it's not going to go that far.
You want to see something
Unlike
that's not
SN1.
chained down right now?
Is there a liftoff?
We have a Kato.
Whoa!
Look at that at Port Canaveral. That is booster 1058, and it has got a cable-assisted takeoff over at the port. They have a big crane up above this, and they are getting ready to swing it over onto the dock. So how crazy is that? Look at it swing back and forth.
A cable-assisted liftoff, takeoff. I love it.
Michael, I'm coming up on a hard stop here, so I need to hand off control to you. While they swing this around, are we clear to hand off? I'm going to guess yes.
He
Maybe.
appears to be away.
Sorry, I was
for a
muted.
second.
Yes, let's go for it, and we'll be right back, everyone.
All right, yeah, y'all, we're going to lose commentary for just a second. Stay tuned. We're not done talking about Starship. We'll leave you on a swinging Falcon 9, but John Galloway for NASA Spaceflight signing off. The rest of the team will keep on keeping on here while I step away.
Okay, you should have us back, everyone. Let us know if you can hear us once again. But I have taken over from DOS, and I think you are good to go, DOS.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Video preview start, by the way. We lost
Yeah.
that, but I'm going to hop out here. I'll see y'all later.
Cool, and it looks like
Enjoy.
they can hear us, so that's good. But there you can see on the Falcon 9 is lifting off from the drone ship by a crane-assisted takeoff, as DOS calls it, at Port Canaveral. And on the left there, you can see just read the instructions. The second drone ship, which is getting ready to depart for another Falcon 9 launch. But back with Starship, Chris, do we have some questions?
We do have some questions. We also have some super chats and new memberships I want to run through here first. Lyndon East with a membership and then an increase to that membership after the fact. Thank you so much for that continued support. Florian Max with a new membership, as well as Caravaggio 99 and Teddy Escobar. Thank you both so much for the new membership, and Bruce as well. Really appreciate that type of continuous monthly support. Really helps us for some things which we're still working on in the background, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about shortly with some more additions coming to the NSF repertoire, you might say, based on those, based on the monthly supports and super chats, and also for all of you for just watching the ads at the beginning of the videos. That is a tremendous help as well. So thank you. Just watching those ads. I know on YouTube those ads are annoying. I think they're annoying too on other videos, but they're really helpful. So thank you very much for that. Jared with a super chat saying, thanks for filling the current void in my YouTube channel with awesome videos. You're very much welcome for that. Andrew with a $5 super chat saying, I've been itching all day for something on SN9. Thank you all for your hard work and this live stream. Yeah, as Das was saying, like, we figured, you know, the updates had kind of been coming through Twitter and from various different sources, so we thought it might be good to do a quick, like, hour and a half overview of where we currently stood on everything, just in one place for everyone. So glad it's very much appreciated. JB with the £5 super chat saying, can we talk a little bit more about skinny versus big rockets with Falcon 9 versus Windshear? Anytime. Yes, but yes. But anyway, that was a fun conversation earlier on. But yeah, Windshear affects different vehicles in different ways. Ooh, and that's a nice view of Bluezilla, isn't it, Michael?
Yep, as you can see, are they... Maybe you can let us know on our back channel if they are doing any work. I see there's some workers there. I'm not sure if they're working on the crane or something else, but like I was mentioning earlier, we're still waiting to see if they're going to move that crane on up to Pad A, where Starship SN10 could possibly roll out to, or exactly what the plan is. But yeah, it does look like there are some workers out there right now. So we'll keep an eye on that. Mary has her camera with that awesome view, and if something happens with the crane, we'll obviously show that.
Yeah, indeed. Nicholas Boswell here with a $5 super chat saying, "Watching NSF and Starship streams have made my quarantine much better. Thank you guys." Oh well, I sincerely hope you're quarantining just because your country is making you, and not because you have it. But if you do, speedy recovery, very speedy recovery. And glad we can help brighten a quarantine. Matt Olson with a $35 super chat saying that I said in Discord that I would donate to the hashtag Jack Hotel Fund in the next live stream, so here it is. Thanks for all the distractions from the constant chaos in my life. Appreciate you all. Very glad we can accommodate that and do that for you. We're Not in Wonderland with a $5.55 super chat. Very specific. I love it. Interesting question. Not specifically Starship, but Michael, this could be cool. Do you have thoughts on scientific testing / monitoring needs for extraterrestrial life?
First.
And then the testing needed for interplanetary transportation development. I think we're a long way from there. You know, the sort of radio frequencies that we're looking for that we know aren't produced naturally, but are produced by artificial means. I know that's definitely something we're looking for, and there's a sort of weird candidate signal that we're looking at right now around the Alpha Centauri system that seems to indicate that it's within that range that we'd be looking at. But again, nothing spectacular. Of course, there was the WOW signal several decades ago, but of course the tricky part is we find these signals and we find them as one-offs, and then we can't find them again, and we can't detect them again. And if we can't detect them again, we can't confirm where they're coming from, really, because it can look like it's coming from one particular system, but it could be coming from behind it, and much farther away. So you know, our ability to detect this, you know, we'll get better at it, but we're a long way from finding it, and especially from ever traveling interstellar. Not going to happen in that regard. But in terms of interplanetary transport, I mean, this is basically what we're looking at right now, is the development of that system that will make it a reality. So and I don't know, Michael, I feel like we're closer than people think, because we and I say we as a spaceflight collective, right, have a lot of experience with what it takes for long duration life support systems that have been functioning uninterrupted aboard the International Space Station. We've used that platform to really position ourselves for this. Not saying it won't be hard, not saying it won't come without its challenges, but you know, we know how to do everything we need to make that type of interplanetary journey successful. It's just the odds and rising to the challenge for it at this point is what I'd say.
Yeah. Let's see. I feel that SN9 has been a bit rushed. What do you think? I mean, I'm not sure what caused it to tip over. That was probably, I don't know if that was due to rushing or what. That was one of the incidents SN9 had, and then the other incident was the triple engine static fire, and the triple engine, I should say the triple static fires of multiple engines that ended up damaging two Raptors. So I think that could have also arguably been rushed. But they were having a lot of aborts of static fires. So I think the reason they tried to do 3 in a day was to make sure that they could get a more consistently countdown sequence done successfully. So they wanted more practice. They went for 3 static fires in a row, and in the process they damaged some engines, and perhaps there would have been less damage had they gone out to the pad to inspect the engines between each static fire, but of course that would have taken a lot longer. So it is hard to say, you know, should they have done it a different way, because if they had done it the way they did it. You know, they ended up with damage, but hindsight's always 20/20, and SpaceX likes to move quickly, and I think they're always going to be rushing to go as fast as possible, and there will be mistakes that are caused by that, but as long as it's just a prototype with no crew on board, I don't think there's too much of a problem with that. You know, humans are not getting hurt by this, so it is what it is, I guess, and it's just how SpaceX operates.
Yeah, and I mean, we will 100% see the cargo version of this thing come online before the crew version. But another it's so funny to just when you switch the visual there, Michael. It's just to see a Falcon 9 dangling in the air like that. That's why I laughed. Sorry. But no, I mean, you know, another thing about this, right, in terms of the overall system development, is this is also being worked very closely and in parallel with NASA because of the lunar element to this, right? So I say we'll see the cargo version come online prior to the crew version, but it's not going to take that much longer to see a crew version of this come online, because I mean, we're expecting in a month, in February, the down select for the human lunar landing system will occur. We expect the national team, which is Blue Origin, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and a couple of others to be one chosen, and we expect SpaceX to be the other one, a down select from 3 to 2. But you know, that's huge too, because of NASA's long-term understanding of what it takes for these long-duration missions and stuff like that. So, you know, I think this system will mature a bit faster than we're used to. Yes, you're talking about rushing in the development stages. That's SpaceX's MO. It's kind of built into how they operate and do it. You know, as long as once the operational stuff starts, you see a very, you know, concerted effort as the vehicle is brought up and proven and undergoes those things, we'll be fine in that regard. And I think SN9 is an interesting microcosm of that, because it has appeared to have issues. Well, it's definitely had issues, not appeared. It has had issues. But in that quest to go as quickly as possible, they've also learned some good things with this vehicle, like you were saying, with the triple static fires, and you know, not just seeing a potential issue with an engine, but seeing an issue with the engine and then knowing your vehicle was still good to fire the remaining two. That's pretty big early on in a development cycle like this. So
Yeah.
anyway, my 2 cents on that.
And again, if you're joining for Starship, we are watching Starship, but we did see that Falcon 9 go flying. I don't think I've actually seen a Falcon 9 be lifted that high in the air before. They usually park the drone ship at a slightly different location when they were unloading it, but because they had both drone ships unloading Falcon 9s in short succession, they had that one drone ship positioned slightly differently, which I guess made the lifting a bit different, but that was pretty cool. Let's see, and they're about to set Falcon 9 back down onto that stand, which they will use to fold up the legs. So that's happening at Port Canaveral right now in Florida, but with Starship right now, not a whole lot of activity at the pad. There are some high winds in the area, and let me see what the current weather is. This weather is for Boca Chica, not Florida, and we can see 27 knot winds, which is about 30 miles per hour, if I'm not mistaken. And the wind limit on the lifts they use to work on Starship is 28 miles per hour approximately. So that means they're not allowed to go up high on lifts to work on Starship. I'm not sure if they need to be doing any work on Starship that would require those lifts right now in order to prepare for a potential flight opportunity tomorrow. But the fact that there is some high wind right now could impact their ability to prepare Starship SN9 for flight. So that is something to keep an eye on right now. But again, if you're just joining us, Thursday is still the earliest possible flight attempt date for Starship SN9, but still waiting for some firm signs like road closures, village evacuation notices, and maritime warnings. As of now, only flight restrictions are the successful checkbox that has been ticked off for flight attempt tomorrow. So still a lot of things that need to happen. And we're already at 2 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday, so I'm not too confident we're going to see a launch attempt tomorrow, but we'll keep you up to date, and as soon as we know more, we'll let you know, so make sure you're following at NASA Spaceflight on Twitter for those updates. And let's see, a couple more super chats. Building the ELR step by step, RGV aerial, 419 in, big black leg stand being assembled, crane over by BN1 launch pad site, white poles awaiting on top. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Big black six-legged stand being assembled. Oh, okay. Yes, I
Yeah,
did
it looks
see.
like it might be the mount for the orbital pad. What
Yes,
the thing
okay.
Super Chatter's talking about. I don't know if that's what it is or what, but it certainly looks plausible.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about now. Yes, that is interesting, and I'm almost wondering. From what I've heard, I mean, the orbital launch mount seems to be actually pretty far along. They've just been having to wait for that concrete to cure in those 6 columns, so perhaps that could be. I would not at all be surprised if they are fabricating those parts and they're going to have them all ready to go as soon as the concrete has cured and whatnot. More super chats. Let's see. John, thank you for the membership. Sean, thank you for the membership. Daniel, Jack Hotel Fund, count me in. Thank you so much, Daniel. Jack, do we know how much you spent on your hotel so far?
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if it's 3 figures or 4 figures now, but the Jack Hotel Fund is much appreciated because we've got Jack's Hotel Fund, we've also got Jack's Camera Rental Fund to cover, so.
It's definitely in the 4. Yes.
Yes, it's definitely in the 4. So.
Yeah.
I know the camera rentals are also quite high. I think those are also in the 4 right now. So we really appreciate all the super chats. I know people always say, why do you always talk about super chats? You guys get so much money. Yes, we get a decent amount in super chats. I'm not going to deny that. But when you also take into account the operating costs, they basically cancel each other out. So it's not like we're driving Lamborghinis around here. None of us have a Lamborghini, so there you go. Lots of funds, and of course we also got all the data plans. So we've got Mary's cameras that have data plans. We got Jack's cameras that have data plans. The F3 robots with data plans. So much stuff to cover. So thank you all for the super chats. We really appreciate it. Chris, thank you for the £5. Just been watching another channel. Primal Space, it says SpaceX has saved approximately 1.4 billion by reusing boosters. That's impressive. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but I will have to see. David, thank you for the $10. Thank you so much for the coverage. Now that we've seen the BN1 thrust dome, how many engines does it look to be configured for, and do we still believe it will be the first to hop with 2 Raptors? Yes. I think Elon did mention 2 Raptors on the first Super Heavy, David. So we'll see what happens, but I think a hop with a couple of Raptors is definitely the most likely. And then build into trains is $5. Made a healthy amount of stock from stock moves. Enjoy a piece of my earnings. Thank you so much, build into trains. We really appreciate it. Let's see. Some questions now. If you had to take your best guess, when do you think it's going to fly, Chris?
Early next week.
No.
I'm sorry, Jack. For you, I definitely hope tomorrow, but
Yeah. Yeah. Let's be realistic here. It does not seem like tomorrow is going to be a thing. So.
yeah, no. Sadly, it does not.
We can see there's workers about to secure Falcon 9 on that stand right now. Starship on the other cameras continues to make progress. And I'm taking a look right now. It looks like we don't have any progress on that crane, so we'll keep an eye on that. But so far, the crane is remaining at that at the landing pad, which again is another bad sign for tomorrow. They will have to move that crane away from the landing pad if they are going to fly tomorrow.
Indeed. A question about the tank, though, about the SN 7.2 tank that we have. What's that little thing on top of it? It's got that little like dual
It's
circle
valves.
thing on top. Valves. All right. So yeah,
Those
rocket
two
launches.
little blue things on top of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think those are valves. We saw them also for 7.1 and 7, and they're like a recurring fixture of the testing site and of the testing flow. If you're familiar with the thrust simulator, it's like 3 hydraulic rams. That's sort of another one of those familiar pieces of equipment that we've seen used multiple times over and over. And those 2 little blue deals that you can see, it almost looks like it makes the test tanks look like a little fat little toad or something, and it's got 2 little eyes at the top of its head.
Yes, that's exactly how I was going to describe them. Yeah, the little eyes. Yeah. It's funny. More reasons to anthropomorphize these things. Yes.
I mean, it's already so easy, and then they give them little faces, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna call it Joe. Its name is Joe now.
I know, like when they outfitted Starhopper with eyes, I was like, oh, this just got harder. Like to not think of it as a cute little thing. Definitely. Here's a sort of so Ben with a good question here, saying if they can't go on Thursday or Friday, would they wait until Monday? That kind of seems to be the thought process here. There's a limited number of weekends a year. We're not sure if there's like a hard number to that, but basically the county has told SpaceX they would highly prefer not to close the beach, which is a public beach, on weekends whenever possible, but also acknowledging that there might be times when SpaceX really does need to test on weekends. So it's kind of a balancing act, but we do think that they would attempt to skip over the weekend again, but it will probably that the answer to that might happen closer to the weekend, in all honesty, as they're going to be really looking at the weather in Boca Chica. And if there is a day on the weekend that looks like it might be favorable, they might go for it with the county's concurrence. So, it is a good question. Would they wait until Monday if they can't get off the ground either tomorrow or Friday? Possible, though the odds of them skipping over the weekend are always going to be slightly higher until you can get closer and see what the weather might be and what SpaceX's testing cadence needs are for something like that. Go ahead.
No, that's great. And how many more questions do you want to do, Chris? Maybe like 1 or 2 more, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, that would be good. That would definitely be good. So let me grab a couple more here. All right, here's a good one. Even if SN9 doesn't fly this week, is there any indication that they might do additional testing on SN 7.2 this week? I guess
It seems that way. I mean, I
rule it out.
I sort of expected them to test it to destruction, right?
Yeah, I mean that does seem the logical next step. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, we definitely saw a potential flight day get reconfigured to use to test SN 7.2 to begin with. So not impossible that we could see that, definitely. All right, last question. Okay, second to last question. Do we know why the FAA seems to be dragging their feet all of a sudden? It's not so much dragging their feet. We did see this happen with SN8 as well, where the final FAA approval for flight wasn't given until very, very close to the first attempt that was made to lift off. So it's not unusual in this regard. SpaceX has also been tweaking the flight profile and the flight plan, which all sort of levels into it. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're dragging their feet or anything, as opposed to this is a test series. It's a very different kind of test than we're used to, and that the FAA is used to. And ultimately, the FAA is the authorizing agency that says yes to this. So if something goes wrong, they are on the line for its authorization. So it's really a firm dotting your I's, crossing your T's thing with this, but I wouldn't read anything into it in that regard.
I do actually have breaking news.
Ah,
It is
yes.
good news. There is a marine safety hazard area that has been published for January 28th through February 5th during daylight hours. So
Ooh.
the notice to mariners has gone out for a test flight as early as tomorrow. This does not mean the test flight is going to happen tomorrow for sure, because it's a warning that lasts from January 28th through February 5th, but it is a very promising sign that the test flight is still scheduled to occur within the next couple of days.
Very good, very good, and also a good possibility, and also an indication that if SpaceX were to want to opt for the weekend, they could potentially do that from airspace closure. From an airspace closure perspective, though, they would still need the permission of the county to do that. But January 28th through February 5th would definitely take us through the weekend. So awesome. Awesome. And then just to close it out here, thank you so much. Jeffrey, thanks for the $1 super chat. Henrik, thanks so much for the new membership. Rudy with a new membership as well. Thank you so much. And Steve's with a $5 super chat. Gonna round this out. NASA is contracting Europa. A NASA Europa Clipper rocket. Will SLS be too busy supporting Artemis for the Clipper? So not a Starship question, but a SpaceX question, definitely. In here, no, I didn't misspeak. Yes, NASA is soliciting proposals for commercial rockets to launch the Europa Clipper mission. This is not so much an indication that SLS is too busy supporting Artemis to do it, so much as it is, why would we commit to spending close to $1 billion or $500,000 to $1 billion on a rocket when commercial alternatives could do it and do it quicker than SLS. This is also becoming a timing thing of exactly when Europa Clipper would be ready to launch versus when a SLS science version or cargo only variant would be ready to support versus just putting it on top of a Falcon Heavy or a Vulcan or something along that lines and getting it on its way to Jupiter. So that is the answer to that, and SpaceX will definitely be in competition mode for that particular mission, most likely with the Falcon Heavy, which has kind of already been identified as the next most desired rocket, though there's definitely going to be a fair and competitive bid now that some of the other vehicles are much farther along in their processes as well. So that is that, and a good SpaceX all-around thing, I think, to end. Huh, Michael?
Yes. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for Chris for the help on commentary. That was Chris Gebhardt, who is the assistant managing editor at NASA Spaceflight. So thank you so much, Chris.
Indeed, my absolute pleasure.
We also had DOS online earlier, and I think we're still on air on his Twitch channel. So make sure you follow DOS on Twitter at KSpace Academy. And then we also have Mary in the field with this awesome view of Starship. Thank you so much for the help today, Mary. Mary is at Boca Chica Gal on Twitter, and these up-close views of Starship would not be possible without her hard work, especially those daily videos, which it's only like a 10-minute daily video, but that's because we've edited down like 6 hours or more of Mary's time being spent out there waiting for something to happen. As you can see, when we go live, Chris, we don't see a lot happen when we're live, and that's because Mary is out there all day long for the daily videos waiting for stuff to happen. So she condenses a lot of information, and that allows us to make an action-packed daily video for you all to watch. So thank you so much for the hard work, Mary. Then we also have Jack out there, who has been in Boca Chica for way too much time now waiting for SN9 to finally fly. But hopefully, for your sake, Jack, we're going to get a test flight soon. And Jack is at the Jack Buyer on Twitter if you want to follow him. And then finally, I am Michael Baylor at Next Spaceflight on Twitter. Thank you all for watching. If there is going to be a test flight tomorrow, we'll go live very early in the morning. I'm not exactly sure when, probably around sunrise in Boca Chica. But stay tuned for that stream link if it is going to happen. And you can follow us on Twitter for updates as we get more and more information into the evening. That will give us a better sense of whether or not tomorrow is actually a strong possibility or not. But hopefully we will be live tomorrow with the test flight. If not, probably not soon after that. So make sure you turn on notifications so that when we go live, you do not miss it, because it will be important and a very exciting test flight. But until then, we will see you all next time. Thank you all for watching.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
Alright, the chamber pressure looks good. Following up. Roger, roll, Atlantic. Fire downside of speed off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.